Hello, and welcome to episode number 33 of Wrestlerotica, the podcast that combines wrestling and erotica. This week is our second week of our Halloween special. This week we have one story to share with you, and it is a Wrestlerotica original. This story is called MizDad's Halloween Party. In this story, the Miz's father throws his annual Halloween bash, and many WWE Superstars and Divas are in attendance. The MizDad doesn't know, but he is about to have some special encounters with three divas tonight. This story stars the MizDad, Asuka, Naomi, and Bayley. Without further ado, let's get to this week's story. This story is entitled MizDad's Halloween Party. It was a dark and gloomy Saturday night. The rain continued pouring down in Cleveland, and the thunder and lightning continued crashing every few minutes. However, things were completely different on the inside of the Mizzen household. Inside, both the Miz's mother and father were rapidly preparing for their Halloween party. The Mizzen Halloween party had been a tradition for nearly 20 years at this point, and for many people, it was one of the can't-miss events of the year. Nobody was a bigger fan of Halloween and horror than the Miz's father. Yes, the MizDad was truly a horror connoisseur. Each year he began celebrating the holiday earlier and earlier, and decorating more and more of their house. It started simple, with only a few simple bat decorations strewn throughout the house and entranceway. And then, one year he bought a scarecrow. In another year he got a good deal on caskets. In another year he picked up a huge surplus of skeletons. As the years had passed, the Mizzen household slowly transformed into a haunted attraction every single October. Then, the parties began to take place. The Halloween parties at the Mizzen household started off simple. The Miz's parents began to invite a few friends over each year, and enjoyed a few beverages as well as a few adult Halloween games. Each year the party seemed to grow as more and more people began to attend. Eventually the party started to get the attention of the Miz's co-workers, who loved being around his father. The MizDad was definitely a party animal, and everybody wanted to attend one of his parties. Everybody in the entire WWE locker room waited anxiously for an invite throughout September. The superstars who were invited felt relieved, and the superstars who weren't invited were devastated. Aww. If you were elected to be one of the MizDad's Halloween guests, you had to show up, or risk never being invited again. The doorbell then rang loudly, as a knocking sound was also heard. Fuck! Who the hell is that? The party isn't for another few hours, and I'm not even ready yet! Hell, I'm not even dressed in my costume yet. This better not be somebody for the party, the MizDad grumbled. Oh dear, relax honey. It's probably just Mike. He asked me earlier if he could come help out with anything. And I know how you always get about this party. Always so stressed about it. So I told him to come early. The Miz's mother responded. The doorbell rang again. And finally Mike's father approached the door and swung it open. Standing in the doorway were the Miz and his gorgeous wife Maryse. Neither of them were dressed for the party yet. But the Miz's dad couldn't help but to look Maryse up and down. He noticed that she was wearing a teensy red dress that showed ample amounts of cleavage.
Get a good look, Costanza?
Hello, Dad. I hope you don't mind that we are here a few hours early. Mom said that you might need some help setting up the party. And since a lot of my coworkers are coming to this, I figured that I should at least be somewhat involved. Plus, this way we get to spend some significant amount of time together.
Oh, joy of joys!
So, Dad, is there anything that I can do to help right now? Mike asked. Well, first of all, you can move the hell out of my way. How the hell am I going to hug your gorgeous wife with you standing there in the way? Also, could you quit blocking the doorway and let your wife inside from the goddamn rain? The MizDad responded. He then proceeded to lightly shove his son out of the way, and walked over to Maryse. He threw his arms around the petite blonde. He squeezed her tightly. and for longer than a normal hug would be. He also gave her a kiss on the cheeks. She responded by merrily laughing and saying, "It's been too long since we've seen each other, Dad. When was the last time anyway?" The MizDad merrily laughed. He knew that both of the two remembered the last time that they had seen each other. He went on to state, "It was around Father's Day, I believe. Wasn't that when Mike had a show, and you decided to stay here and help me? Help me with a few things in the garage?" She simply laughed and stated, "Yes, that was the last time. It was a great day." They could hear Mike's mother calling from the other room before she walked into the living room. She came out with a Pabst Blue Ribbon and handed it to her husband. "Baby, I got this for you. I know that it's going to be a long night, and that we still have a lot to do before everybody gets here. Try to drink this beer and relax if you can. Maryse, Mike, is there anything that I can get the two of you? Something to drink or something to eat?" Maryse shook her head as Mike spoke out. "No thank you, Mom. We stopped just a little bit ago on the road and picked up something. So where do you need us to help out the most?" Mike's father finally responded, "We could use some help setting up the garage. It has most of the decorations up, but we still need to enable the fog machines and get those going. The bathroom's haunts are ready to go, and the bedrooms as well as the study are almost done." Mike looked at his father, stunned for a second. "Since when do you have a study? The last time that I was home, you didn't have a study. Is this just one of the bedrooms with a mini fridge in your collections?" The older man answered him affirmatively. The grandfather clock chimed out, and the group realized that they should stop wasting time and get to work. The Miz and his father proceeded to the garage, while Maryse and his mother went back into the kitchen to finish prepping all the food and refreshments for the party. In the garage, Mike and his father continued any last-minute work that needed to be done. They double-checked that all the fog machines were ready to go. They made sure that all the skeletons were hung properly, and the proper music was ready to go for their haunts. The Miz couldn't help but to smile as he watched his dad frantically pace around the garage, checking time and time again that every contraption worked. Mike thought to himself that his dad was an absolute lunatic, but in the best kind of way.
"He's crazy."
He turned to his dad and began to compliment him. "Dad, if I've never said this before, I absolutely love how into this you are. For my whole life, you have always made sure to throw us some of the best parties ever. And I know that these parties are a lot of work for you. But I really appreciate it, Dad. Please, do your best and try to have some fun tonight. Hell, some of my coworkers can't wait to meet you for the first time." His dad simply looks at him and smiles. He polishes off the remainder of his Pabst Blue Ribbon before grabbing another one from the fridge in the garage and cracking it open. "Son, when have you known me to not have fun at a party? Especially at a goddamn Halloween party. The only question is if I'm going to have too much fun. And you know that I'm waiting to meet some of your co-workers for the first time. I'm stoked to meet a few of them especially." The Miz instantly gets a quizzical and puzzled look on his face as he responds, "Dad, who are you talking about? Should I be worried that you are going to do something to embarrass me? Dad, come on, Dad, try to stay sensible about things tonight." "Son, you have nothing to worry about. Have I embarrassed you yet at any of these parties?" "Well, no, but there's always a first." He was instantly cut off by his father. "Relax, Mike. Here, take the rest of this beer. You need to relax just as much as I do. Besides, you should really focus on the positives about tonight. You get a night off to do nothing else but dance and hang out with your gorgeous bride. Plus, if she's wearing anything as remotely sexy as she had on earlier, heads will be spinning like in The Exorcist."
"With the Father and the Holy Spirit. Damien!"
"Dad!" "Sorry, son," he replied as he went over to his fridge, grabbed another beer, and opened it up. "It's okay, Dad. Let's just make a toast to tonight being a great night for everybody. His father cleaned his beer can against his son's, as the two smiled and continued to blissfully prepare for the party. A few hours had passed and the party was now in full swing. Various Halloween classics, such as the Monster Mash, could be heard playing throughout the party. The house was filled with a variety of guests, including WWE Superstars. Kofi Kingston, who was dressed as a ninja. Hornswoggle, who was dressed as Gonzo from the Muppets.
Hi, I'm the Great Gonzo.
Wade Barrett, who was dressed as a cop.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you?
And Tyler Breeze, who was dressed as Tyler Breeze? Many WWE divas were also in attendance, including former diva Caitlyn, who was dressed as Wonder Woman, AJ Lee, who was dressed as Quillman, Lita, Kelly, and of course Maryse. Maryse's costume, much to the surprise of nobody, was sexier than the outfit she had on earlier. She decided to go as one of Halloween's most classic costumes. She was dressed as a Catholic schoolgirl.
Oh yeah!
And as Hornswoggle would find out later in the evening, while hiding under the snack table, Maryse was also completely pantyless.
And then I saw her standing there with green eyes and long blonde hair. She wasn't wearing underwear.
Out in the living room, a group of people were attempting to play Twist on the classic Halloween games. On the couch, John Cena and Nikki Bella were joined by Daniel Bryan and Brie.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
And they were playing a drinking game while watching the cult classic movie, Killer Clowns from Outer Space. They decided to drink for the following rules. Every time Mooney is on the screen and committing police brutality. Every time Shorty is on screen.
What are you gonna do? Knock my block off?
Every time Cotton Candy makes an appearance. And every time one of the clowns does a stereotypical clown action. Out in the garage, the music was blaring, and a number of people were dancing, including the Miz's father. He was really cutting up on the dance floor, and a number of people were definitely watching him get his groove on. Heath Slater, who was dressed as a Crest toothpaste bottle.
Yes! I bought your Colgate toothpaste, the one with tartar control, and it made me feel like a piece of shit!
Turned to the Miz, who was guzzling down a shot and stated, "Damn, dude! Look at your dad tear it up! He's a dancing fool!" The Miz cracked up and replied back, "Yeah, he's pretty good. I've taught him a thing or two." Though, I don't know if you should be comparing him to the dancing fool. There's some people who would take offense to that. Heath laughed. "Who are you talking about? Did you somehow manage to get Das Wonder Kid to show up? You know, Alex, right?" "Well, not exactly, Heath. But, do you see the person over there who is dressed as Wario?"
Oh, I missed!
"Yes, Wario. That's Coach Smiley over there." The Miz continued, "You have to be shitting me! Of all the costumes, I would have never pictured that Coach Smiley would have dressed up as Wario. I can't believe that Coach Smiley knows anything about video games." Slater went on to say, "The Miz started laughing so hard that he eventually started wheezing. He finally managed to find the words to explain to Heath that Norman informed him earlier about his costume choice. Norman had told The Miz that he had forgot to get a costume until last minute, and resorted to borrowing one from his nephew. The Miz once again laughed before continuing. And the worst part of it all is, Norman's nephew told him that he gave him a cool costume, something that would earn him respect among his younger colleagues, something that would make his coworkers talk about the Big Wiggle all night. Well, his nephew was kind of right. We are talking about his costume after all." Slater responded. And with that, the two men simply looked at each other. They stood silent for a few seconds before finally going back to their drink. The music continued through the garage as the dance floor became increasingly crowded. People all over the dance floor were bumping, grinding, and still, at the heart of it all, was the MizDad. He continued to party and rage wildly, with every beat and pulse of the music. The music suddenly changed to something far slower and sexier as the lights were lowered. All of a sudden, a loud whooshing sound was heard. And it quickly became apparent that the smoke machines were just turned on. The garage begins to fill with a heavy haze of fog. Just then, the Miz's father feels a warm breath on the back of his neck. He quickly snaps around and tries to figure out what is going on. He looks, and he sees nothing. He stands there bewildered. Suddenly, he once again feels a warm breath on the back of his neck. He again turns around and sees nobody. His blood starts to boil, and he begins to get slightly pissed off. He lets out a bellow. "Which one of you fuckers is toying with me?" It's not the least bit funny. Cut out the shit or else. He hears a laugh behind him. Before once again feeling a warm breath on his neck. But then, he feels something different. As he feels somebody lean into his ear and whisper, "Or else what, sexy? What are you going to do to me? Especially if you can't even see me. I could easily continue to tease you like this all night. And unless I want you to, you would never even know who this is. Wouldn't that just drive you absolutely crazy? I could continue to fuck with you all night long, and you'd never even know what to do. I can just see it now. You'd continue lashing out at everyone in this party, losing your complete cool, ruining your own party." The MizDad was rocked. He remained silent now, not knowing how to respond or even react to whatever was going on. The only thing that he knew is that somebody was attacking him. Somebody was coming after him. And for what? What could they possibly want from him? I see that I have you quite rattled right now. You have no idea of what's going on, do you? The voice responds. The MizDad once again hears a laugh behind him. But this time, he notices that it's a female laugh. He once again lets out a booming roar. "Lady, whoever you are, I demand that you show yourself. Besides, what kind of person are you if you won't even show yourself? Some kind of scared asshole? Some kind of pussy? I'll make a deal with you. I'm going to turn around again in 3 seconds. And you better show yourself. I'll even give you the benefit of a countdown. Alright, lady. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. The music crescendos. As the MizDad turns around this time, he sees somebody. It is a squat Japanese lady dressed in a witch costume. The Miz's father has absolutely no idea who this is, but he knows that he is intrigued. In fact, he is a little more than intrigued. Maybe it's the alcohol finally hitting him, but he notices that something about this Japanese lady has him turned on. Perhaps it's the mystery and intrigue, or perhaps it's the fact that even in her witch costume, her breasts are on full display. And dear Lord, what a display it is. All of a sudden, he knows that he must have this witch ride his broomstick. He turns to her suddenly and begins to speak. "I don't know who you are or what you are up to, but I can't deny how attracted I am to you. There's definitely something about you that is driving me crazy. I need to have you." He pauses for a moment. He then sighs heavily before continuing to speak. "The only question is where? Where can I have you? This goddamn party is so crowded. Damn it. Why do we always invite so many people to these things?" The lady merrily laughs again as she begins to stroke his face. She leans in to kiss him and places a finger to his lips as a way of hushing him. She then goes off to say, "Quiet, silly. Right here is fine for what I want and what you are going to get. Nobody will be able to see anything in here. Those fog machines of yours that you set up were decent, but I upgraded them." As long as this fog is going, and the music is playing, we are virtually invisible, and we are free to do whatever we want here. Nobody will see us. The MizDad laughs. So, I better hope this song is a long one then. I mean, you said when the music ends. It's not that literal, baby, she responds. But what do you want? I mean, I still don't even know who you are. What do I even call you? MizDad states, I'm Asuka, one of NXT's newest divas. You know, I've wanted to get to know you forever. In fact, you were part of the reason I came to NXT. I saw you on TV in Japan, and I knew that the men there weren't in comparison. In fact, I had never seen somebody with quite your body type ever. And I know that I've only been with the company for a few weeks. And yet, I go after what I want.
You go, girl.
And you, I want you. I want you in so many ways. But mostly, right now, I want you in my mouth. I want to feel your penis on my lips, she said. With that, there was nothing more to do, nothing more to obey, nothing more than to give in. So the MizDad did the only thing that he could do. He pulled down his pants and pulled his penis out of his boxers. He twisted a bit, and let his cock wave a little bit in front of the squat Japanese lady. Asuka was impressed with the size of his ding-a-ling.
My ding-a-ling! My ding-a-ling! I want you to play with my ding-a-ling!
It was probably the biggest cock she had ever seen in her life. In comparison to the men she had been with in Japan, even the average American seemed huge. With that, she turned extremely horny and began salivating heavily. She quickly reached her hands up to the dick in front of her. She wrapped her hands around it before rubbing her fingers thoroughly up and down his penis. She grabbed the shaft rapidly before taking a hold of it and placing it onto her lips. She could feel the weight of the MizDad's dick on her lips. She was also beginning to taste the saltiness of the old man's dick on her tongue. And she didn't care. To her, it was delicious. After all, this is why she came to this party. This was her goal. She wanted to get this old man's dick into her mouth.
Mission complete.
She began to slowly move her lips up and down the penis. She wanted to taste each and every millimeter of his member. She wanted to feel all his hardness against her throat. She wanted to simply devour this dick. She began to choke as she took more and more of his dick into her mouth. She didn't expect him to be so huge, but she definitely thought her mouth was a perfect fit for his size. Every thrust he made gave her a sense of euphoria. Glog, 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 were the sounds heard as Asuka took more and more of his member in his mouth. The MizDad was still trying to comprehend exactly what was going on. He knew that right now, something amazing and wonderful was happening in his sexual organs. But he wasn't sure why. He didn't know what he had done to deserve this. All he knew was that he was dancing in the garage, and then suddenly, this lady had approached him. And when she approached him, she wanted everything. She wanted to taste his cock. And Asuka got her wish, as she continued to devour his penis in the middle of the dance floor in this garage. The fog continued to blur this encounter, but what couldn't be blurred was the desire between these two. Both of their hormones were bursting. They were both hornier than they had been in a long, long time. They were both approaching new levels of desire. Levels that had never been thought of before. Levels that neither of them knew that they could achieve. And the only thing to do, the only way to respond, was to push the limits. To find out what you could really discover. To find a bliss that you had never experienced before. Her lips continued sliding up and down his shaft. They were getting super sloppy double dare style.
Super sloppy double dare with all new super sloppy physical challenges.
And he merely continued to groan. He could feel the pressure heavy on his testicles. He could feel each and every warm embrace as Asuka's mouth went up and down his cock. MizDad thought to himself about how slippery his dick was. How Asuka managed to get it this wet without any kind of aid. How her mouth was far superior than any kind of lubricant that was on the market.
What?
He couldn't believe that this was such a good blowjob. After all, he had a lot of experiences with blowjobs. His wife was above average at giving them.
Oh, that's sweet.
And there was always that time that he hooked up with Maryse. And even in his mind, he knew that there was something special about this action. Something special about this blowjob. How was Asuka so good? Was this an Asian secret? He didn't even care. All that he knew was that he was ecstatic, that as long as her lips were rubbing all of his erogenous zones, he would be content. He would be so content that he couldn't contain himself too long. As her mouth continued up and down his penis, he could barely continue. There was a loud gurgling sound, and his balls started throbbing. Asuka could feel an increase in the throbs from his penis. She could tell that each throb meant he was getting closer. He was getting closer to exploding. She could feel each and every throb in his penis as she continued sucking his cock. She didn't know how much of this she could take, but she knew that she wanted to. Everything about his dick was amazing, and she didn't know if she would get another chance with him. With another chance at the MizDad. She didn't know if she wanted to put up with the locker room fights to continue to hook up with him. The MizDad began to let out some moans. "Oh yeah! Keep it up, Asuka! I'm so close! I just need a little bit more! I'm so close to exploding!" The Halloween music continued in the background, and still nobody was wiser to what was going on. In the middle of the dance floor, the Miz's father and one of NXT's newest recruits were going at it. Asuka had his penis in her mouth and was sucking his penis with intensity. It looked like she was completely ready to finish this action. Asuka decided to get aggressive. As she continued sucking, she reached her other hand near the MizDad's anus. She wanted to place a finger in his ass. She wanted to really make him explode. As she continued reaching, she finally found it. She finally found a spot where her finger would fit in. As she placed her finger, she could hear a tiny popping sound. And instantly, she felt it. She felt the MizDad's dick get harder. She felt the twinges of his dick. She could feel the cock rising in her hands. She knew that she only had one recourse. She was going to have to suck him as hard as she could. She knew that she was going to have to suck him harder than anybody she had ever sucked before. And she did just that. With her lips pressed against the MizDad's cock, she slurped super hard. She slurped as hard as she could. She slurped until her lips began to get chapped. She slurped until her lips began to chatter. She slurped until her brain went numb.
Brain freeze! Brain freeze! Brain freeze! Brain freeze!
And she slurped and slurped until the only thing she could experience was his dick. The MizDad's dick. The MizDad's dick within her mouth. And she wanted it more than anything else. She wanted him to finally come. And he also wanted it. The MizDad was finally ready to come into a beautiful Asian's mouth. For the first time in his life. There was nothing else heard for a couple of seconds. And finally, all that was heard was splatting sounds. Splats upon splats. Loads upon loads. The MizDad was coming as hard and as frequently as Asuka was.
Ooh.
They were moaning loudly and aggressively, and yet nobody could hear them. Thank God for the fog in this garage. Thank God for the smoke machines. Even on this busy dance floor, nobody could see them. And that was the way they liked it. As soon as they were done, MizDad once again spun around and looked for her. She was gone. Again. Nobody was behind him. He had no idea where Asuka had disappeared to. But he also wasn't too concerned. He had just experienced a great sensation. And if the rest of the party was going to shake out like this, then he was ready for it. He was ready to experience what else was going to take place at this party. He didn't have to wait too much longer before he was approached again by another WWE diva. He knew that he had a reputation as a stud, but if he was ever going to expand his reputation, it was going to be tonight.
You can do it!
So when another lady approached him, he was completely ready for it. He was ready for pretty much anything. There was a reason why he was always the coolest person in any situation. Truly the MizDad was in a league of his own. So, as he continued to party in the garage, the MizDad didn't know who would be the next to approach him. Sure, in his mind he had his favorites. There were plenty of WWE divas that he wished would approach him. Even though he just had an amazing experience with Asuka, he couldn't help but to want more. This was, after all, Halloween, and his party. He had spent many weeks trying to set up everything for this party, and he knew that he had barely begun to scratch the surface. No! He expected more from this night. There were plenty of his son's other friends here. There were plenty of Maryse's other friends here. And he knew that this was his opportunity to have more sex than he could imagine in a night. The Miz's father wasn't a prude by any means. After all, he had an open relationship with his wife. They were both free to have any kind of sexual interaction with anybody who came to their home. After all, that was why they did this, why they had this Halloween party for so long, why they were such a good couple after so many years. They weren't afraid to experiment, they weren't afraid to be open, they weren't afraid to live life. And he thought, so who could he hook up with next? Who was available at this party? The MizDad definitely wanted more, and he began to stroll through the party, trying to find somebody else to fool around with. He left the garage and walked into the living room, where plenty of people were listening to music. He didn't see who he was looking for. So he continued on to another room. He approached the house's staircase and proceeded to walk up them. At the top of the steps, he realized there were multiple rooms, and he decided to walk to the rooms on the left. There were 2 rooms. As he approached the second room, he knocked on the door. A loud rapping sound was heard. Nobody answered, but he proceeded to swing the door open. As he opened the door, he couldn't believe what he saw. He opened the door to see a room and a bed, and in the bed was the beautiful diva, Naomi. And Naomi was presenting herself. When you first swung open the door, she had on a dark bra, but as the door swung open, she quickly removed that and completely presented herself. She wanted you to see her breast. She wanted you to view her hooters. She originally was wearing a black lacy thong, but she removed that too. She meant business. She wanted you as soon as possible. What did you do? You did the best that you could. You walked over to the bed and you began to kiss her. You reached over to the bedstand and placed on a condom. Even though you were in a rush for this, you knew that safety was important. After all, you didn't need any Usos running around. You didn't need to get into any paternity battles with WWE Divas. You had a child already, and that's why you were having this party. The Miz was your child, and you were his father. You wanted to make him look good, and you also wanted to make yourself look good. And your night was already going well. You had already pleased one WWE Diva, and it looked like you would soon be pleasing your second WWE Diva. So there she was. Naomi was spread across this bed, waiting to be serviced, and the only thing that you could think of was eating her out. You wanted to eat her black box. You wanted to pleasure that pussy. You wanted to lap your tongue like you were thirsty. You wanted to get your mouth sticky with all of Naomi's juices. And as you would quickly find out, you couldn't believe the taste of her juices. They were so delicious. They were so sweet. They were like a mix of Surge and Tang.
Because nothing fuels up your family like a nutritious breakfast and Tang.
And something else that you didn't know how to describe. And you thought to yourself that you could get used to this. You could get used to these juices. If you had to choose in life only one liquid to drink, these pussy juices would bear a lot of consideration. He continued going down on her, making sure to lick each and every spot of Naomi's dripping wet pussy. She began to moan loudly, and he briefly told her to keep it down. She tried her best to muffle her moans, but she struggled as he continued to wiggle his tongue deeper and deeper in her. Naomi couldn't believe it. She couldn't believe that he was so good at it. She bellowed out as she was nearing an orgasm. "Oh, MizDad! Oh, baby! I enjoy how you flick that tongue at me! Oh, you are so much better than my husband at this! Keep going, baby! I'm so close!" It only took another few seconds before Naomi felt a warm sensation of cum squirting from her privates. The Miz's father simply buried his face in her legs further. He wanted to soak his head in this stream of cum. Naomi began to speak. Damn, baby. Maybe you should be on Team Bad, because you are a complete badass at eating pussy. I've never been taken like that before, but I think we should be getting back to the party. We don't want to seem suspicious, do we? He stared at her with a sheepish grin on his face before responding. Naomi, I frankly don't give a fuck if people are missing us. I'm still ready to go, and if you think I'm passing up this chance to work your glorious ass, you are crazy. I've been wanting to play with that ass for years, MizDad stated. She laughed and also had a huge grin on her face. This ass? You mean this beautiful ass? She then proceeded to flip over onto her stomach. She was fully presenting her ass to the Miz's father. And I bet you just want to bury your face into this ass too. You want to feel my ass wiggling all over your face, don't you, big boy? Well, I'll tell you what. As long as you are relatively quick, you can do whatever you would like to do to my ass. She continued. Well, my face and some other things, yes. But enough talking about it. I can be as quick as you would like me to be. And even when I'm quick, I'll fuck that ass real good. I bet that when I am finished, you will be begging me to fuck your ass again soon. He stated with a ton of confidence. He then took his whole head and rested it on Naomi's butt cheeks. He took his fingers and slowly began to spread open her ass. He let out a loud sniff as he began sniffing her anus. He couldn't help himself anymore. He had to taste her back entry buffet. He popped his tongue into her backside and began slowly rolling his tongue up and down her butthole. She let out yelp after yelp, and he could tell that she was getting increasingly hornier. He was beginning to have her right where he wanted. Soon, she would be loose and wet enough that he could slide his cock right in that ass. She moaned again loudly and reached out to squeeze his wrist. He knew that she was getting closer and closer to being ready for his swelling dick. Finally, she whispered to him, Daddy, Miss Daddy, please, I need it. I need it so bad. Please give me that dick. Give it to me right now, baby. He was good at following instructions, especially when the instructions were exactly what he wanted to do. He instantly pushed his erect penis into her asshole, and she responded by letting out a loud whimper. He continued to pump, and her screams continued echoing throughout the room. She ordered him to go faster. Loud echoes of skin slapping skin could be heard throughout the entire bedroom. The MizDad was beginning to feel the strain of the evening, and he felt his balls start to get heavy. He knew that he wasn't going to last much longer. He quickened his pace as Naomi continued to yell out dirty talk. Oh, Daddy! Fuck me good! Oh, fuck yes! Oh, right there! Oh yes! I love your cock! His daddy's got a real good cock! She felt the quivering in his legs, and she instantly felt the entirety of his load shoot deep into her ass. She also let out a huge groan at the same time. Slowly, the MizDad removed his cock from her ass, as loud squishing sounds were heard. He moved up to Naomi and placed a deep kiss on her lips. They were both happy as they continued to lay next to each other for a few minutes. Eventually, they knew that they had to go back to the party. Naomi turned to him and said, What do you think we should do about these sheets? They are kind of soaked and ruined. He laughed and simply turned to her and said, Fuck it! Just throw them off the bed! It's not like anybody's going to be doing anything with these sheets, and if they are, well, they will just get a surprise if they try to dress up as a ghost. A sex-stand ghost. Anyway, I'm extremely thirsty. I need another beer. Thanks for everything tonight. We'll have to do this again in the future. That ass is truly out of this world. He then proceeded to get dressed and exited the room. He went downstairs and headed to the kitchen to help himself to some food and beverages. He had already been with 2 WWE Divas tonight, and if he was lucky, there were going to be more. He needed to keep up his energy if he was going to keep going tonight. He quickly found a meatball sub and paired it with another Pabst Blue Ribbon. While he ate, he continued to take in the sounds of the Halloween party. Over in the next room, he could observe several people in a circle. He noticed that in the middle was Chris Jericho, who was shotgunning beers through a beer bong. The MizDad remarked to himself that he liked the way Chris Jericho partied. If anybody could challenge his partying lifestyle, it was probably Chris Jericho. Jericho was doing his best to get other superstars to join in on the chugging festivities. Alex Riley was the first to join in, to nobody's surprise. Of course, a stereotypical jock like Alex Riley would be no stranger to chugging beers. Upon the completion of his sub, he grabbed another beer and decided to head outside. He wanted to take a moment to collect himself. He wanted to take a moment to relax. He simply needed a break. The day had been long already. He was practically wearing himself thin, and the party was still in full swing. As he went outside, he noticed that it was no longer raining anymore. The air was cool and crisp, but at the same time comfortable. Overhead, the moon was shining intensely. He sat down on the back steps and sighed loudly. He sat there for a few minutes just relaxing, when all of a sudden, he heard somebody approaching. Once again, he wasn't sure of who this was. As the person walked closer to him, he could tell that it was somebody dressed up as a zombie. The person yelled out, "Grrr! I want your brains!" The MizDad was startled slightly, but mostly annoyed. He had already been put through a lot tonight, and didn't have the patience to deal with this, or so he thought. In his gruff manner, he yelled out, "Who the hell is out there? I'm not really in the mood for this. And besides, what kind of zombie are you anyway? I don't think I know of any zombies who directly tell you that they want to eat your brains. Most of them tend to be a little bit more casual than that." The person walked the remaining steps towards the MizDad. All of a sudden, he could make out who this was. It was current NXT Women's Champion Bayley. All of a sudden, it also made sense why her zombie impression was so bad. This short brunette was too cute to portray something scary. She just didn't have it in her. The MizDad suddenly began to relax, and his annoyance levels seemed to lower. He couldn't help but to cheer up at the sight of this gorgeous female. After all, he couldn't deny the lucky streak he was having tonight. After all, every time he encountered a WWE Diva tonight, he had ended up with a new play partner, and he was hoping that this encounter would end up with the same result. He really wanted his opportunity to take on the champion. He spoke up. "So Bayley, is it? I don't believe that we have officially met before. I'm Mike's father. Welcome to our house. I assume that you are enjoying yourself tonight. Well, are you? After all, what are you doing out here all alone? I hope this party isn't going poorly for you." "Oh no! It's not that. It was just getting a little bit rowdy in there, with all of those guys chugging beers like maniacs. I just needed a break for myself. I just needed a break for a second. I needed a break from that noise and all of that. I think that you were throwing a great party. It's just that I snuck out here to do something. Something that I wanted to keep secret from everybody. I didn't know that anybody else would be out here," Bayley stated. "I'm glad that you are enjoying the party, but wait. What do you mean you snuck out here to do something? What exactly were you going to do anyway?" he asked her, extremely intrigued. "Oh, it's nothing too awful. It's just something that I know WWE doesn't approve of, and something that most people would be shocked that I do. And I don't even do it that much, just on super special occasions. And I was having such a great time here tonight that I figured, why not? I came out here because I didn't know who was all inside, and I didn't want this getting back to the bosses. As much as everybody pretends to get along, you just never know who is going to snitch. You know? I love all of my fellow divas and co-workers, but you can never be too careful," Bayley continued. "True. That's the thing I'll never get with you wrestlers. You guys always have to worry about politics and protecting your position. It's super competitive and cutthroat. But if you wanted to go somewhere more private, then perhaps I could take you somewhere. Somewhere that nobody will bother us. You will be free to do whatever you are going to do there." The MizDad spoke with authority. Bayley responded with an enthusiastic yes. The MizDad then got up, and she proceeded to follow after him. They proceeded to walk down the long stretching driveway where they came upon a clearing. The clearing was surrounded by trees, and in the middle was a large trailer. He walked over to the trailer and swung open the door. As he entered the pitch black trailer, he hit the light switch, and the lights began to flicker. He turned around, motioning to Bayley. "After you, my dear. We will have plenty of privacy in here." Bayley entered the trailer and found it to be surprisingly nice. Over in one section of the trailer was a table, where she immediately sat down. She removed a baggie full of green stuff and a pipe from her belongings. She then packed the pipe full of the sticky green substance. The MizDad walked over to the radio in the other part of the trailer and turned it on. He then proceeded to sit down at the table next to her and began to speak. "So, Bayley, this is what you were hiding. You didn't want them to know that you like to occasionally smoke marijuana? It's weird that people still care about something as trivial as weed, to be honest. But I get it. You don't want to take any chances. By the way, is there anything that you'd like to drink? I don't have a lot in this trailer, as this is where I come to relax. I guess in ways, this is my man cave. But I do think that I have some beer in the fridge." "A beer sounds great," she responded. The MizDad walked over to the fridge and began rummaging through it. As she heard bottles clink together, she heard him exclaim, "Woo, buddy! We got some of the good shit in here! I forgot about having this stash in here." He walked over to the table and handed her a Sierra Nevada. She instantly took a huge swig from it and let out a loud belch. The next thing heard in the trailer was the flicker of the lighter, as the bowl had been sparked by Bayley. For the next 10 minutes, there was little conversation between the two of them, as they focused on roasting the bull. The radio could be heard in the background, and occasionally there would be loud coughs coming from one of them. After the bull was finished, the two continued sitting in the trailer, listening to music and conversing. After a few minutes, Bayley got up from her seat and sat down on the MizDad's lap. She turned to the Miz's father and suddenly kissed him on the lips. He was taken aback. He was shocked. This is what he was hoping for, but he didn't expect this to happen so soon. He figured that he would have to wait a while to get Bayley into the mood. He didn't know that she had this kind of aggressiveness in her. Sure, he had seen how aggressive she could be in the ring, especially in her recent matches with Sasha. But out of the ring, he had never seen the side of Bayley. Her kisses got deeper and rougher and sloppier. And his dick, it continued to get harder and harder as more blood rushed into it. He reached his hands out and removed Bayley's top, now sitting in only her bra and pants. She began to push his head deep into her cleavage. He responded by licking and suckling on her cleavage. His hands quickly wandered to her breast, and he began to rub them. He stopped kissing her for just a moment, and began to speak. "Bayley, let's move somewhere a little more comfortable. There's a bed over there." She simply nodded her head and got up from his lap. He was the first to walk over to the bed and plopped down on top of it. The bed squeaked as he got on top of it. As he lay in the bed, still fully dressed, she turned to him and asked him the following question. "MizDaddy, why the fuck are you still wearing pants? I'm ready to jump your bones right now." As she said this, she began walking towards the bed. As she made her way through the trailer, she began to remove the remaining clothes. First, the bra came off, revealing her large, round globes. Then, she dropped her pants slowly. And finally, her panties came off. Now only a few steps away from the bed, she presented herself to the MizDad completely. She asked him in a teasing manner, "So baby, do you like what you see? Something tells me that you do." Then again, I can see that you do. I can see that something in your pants is getting excited. The MizDad couldn't tear off his clothes quick enough. The NXT Women's Champion was standing in front of him, butt-ass naked. His mind was completely blown already, and she was just now beginning to join him on the bed. And boy did she join him. She didn't waste any time, as she instantly got on top of him and began to straddle him. He leaned slightly forward to place one of her breasts in his mouth and began to suck on them. With his free hand, he reached behind her and gave her ass a small smack. He could already feel her hairless pussy rubbing against his erect cock, and he felt a moment of relief when he entered her for the first time. She let out a light whimper. She continued to be extremely aggressive as she bounced up and down the long length of his dick. Her moans began to bounce throughout the trailer and even slightly drowned out the radio. The MizDad continued to lay on his back and watch the brunette riding him. He didn't expect the NXT Women's Champion to also be a champion dick rider, but he wasn't complaining. In fact, he was also letting out moans and groans of pleasure. He had already had 2 ladies tonight, and yet he couldn't help but to feel that this gorgeous brunette was outperforming those 2. Perhaps it was the pot influencing how great the sex felt, or maybe the booze had begun to catch up to him. But the MizDad couldn't believe just how great sex with Bayley felt. She continued to work him as fast and as hard as she could. There was no stopping Bayley. She was going to get what she wanted, and right now, she wanted all of his dick. She was making him give everything, and the MizDad was doing his best. He was doing the best that he could to make sure the champion was satisfied. Oh yes! Fuck me harder! Please fuck me harder! That's it! Oh! Oh! Her moans continued echoing around the walls of the trailer. His face began to turn bright red, and he began to speak with an embarrassed tone in his voice. Bayley! God, your pussy is so tight. It feels so good that I could explode any minute if you keep riding me like that. She laughed as she continued riding him. With each bounce and thrust, the MizDad was struggling to maintain. He was clenching his face just as hard as he was clenching his balls. Bayley quite enjoyed watching him suffer, and yet, he continued to go. He was giving it his best. After a few more minutes of loud fucking, bed squeaking, and moaning, she blurted out, "If you can't take it anymore, then just fucking come at me. I don't give a fuck anymore. I'm ready for it." He erupted instantly. That was all he needed to finally let go. As Bayley slowly got off of him, she watched as the cum dripped out of her vagina. She looked at him directly in the eye before she reached out and placed as much cum as she could on her fingers. She winked at him before licking the cum off of her fingers. He looked at her with a huge smile on his lips. The 2 then collapsed, panting for their breath. They remained there for a while before they decided to get dressed and return to the party. Bayley left the trailer first, as they decided to return to the party separately. As the MizDad walked back to the party, he couldn't help but to think of how his night had gone. Tonight had truly been amazing. He got to have sex with not 1, not 2, but 3 of the world's most beautiful WWE divas. He now had 3 more reasons to enjoy Halloween. Upon returning to the house, he could see that the party had all but ended. He was completely okay with this. He knew that this year's Halloween party had been truly fantastic. He thought to himself only one thought: how can next year's party top this? The end. Thank you for listening to episode number 33 of Wrestlerotica. If you enjoyed this week's story, please be sure to like, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. Also be sure to check us out on our other social media websites, including Facebook, Instagram, Tumblr, Twitter, and our official site, WrestleRoticaPod.com. Thank you, and have a happy holidays.